All right, so TSN 1040 has put out a fan survey asking a bunch of questions on Canucks fans' opinions on things. So I figured let's go through it and we'll answer some of these questions. It looks like they're going to be talking about it on Friday. You can use the link in the description. I'll have it linked there if you want to come do this survey. So click here and we get to our survey. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it's easier for everyone to see. First question, it's 40 questions. Jesus Christ. When you look at the Canucks roster today, what do you see more of, young talent or bloated contracts? I think the amount is probably even, but in my opinion, the young talent's going to last longer, and it's going to have a bigger impact because I think like 2, 3 years on the line with hopefully things are okay contract wise. So I think I'm going to go young talent on this one. Are the Canucks a top four team in an all Canadian division? Ooh, that's tough. If you think of the other teams here, Calgary is going to be. I think all the teams are pretty even, right? Like you got Calgary and Edmonton. I'd say that they're both comparable to Vancouver. Ottawa, obviously not. Toronto, yeah, they should be ahead, but they're probably not. Winnipeg, again, is falling down a bit. I think I'd probably say that they're right in that 3 to 5 range. So I'm going to say yes, but I could see it going the other way. Is it okay for the Canucks to take a step back this coming season? Yes, part of the process, or no, the bar's been raised. Obviously, I'd prefer if they didn't. I think it will happen, but the question is it okay? I don't think that it's okay for them to take a step back. I would understand it and I kind of expect it, but that doesn't mean that like it was an avoidable thing if it does happen. So I'm going to say that no, it's not okay, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. Do you think the Canucks currently have the players and prospects to win a Stanley Cup in the next 3 seasons? They have the players to win, but they don't have all the players, right? Like they have the top end, they have the very bottom end, and then there's that big gap in the middle. So I'd say no. I think that there's some work that needs to be done. How many pieces do they need to add to their current core to be a Stanley Cup contender? So if you think of the core, that would be like top six, top four, goaltending. Goaltending, probably. Top six, they could use maybe 1 or 2 pieces, and then top 4D, probably 1 or 2 pieces. I think 3 to 4 is probably the way to go here. Do I believe the Canucks will win the Stanley Cup with Jim Benning as general manager? You can scratch this whole part off. I don't believe that they will win a Stanley Cup ever. I mean, obviously, it's such a hard trophy to win. And if we even said, right, let's say that there's 10 teams in the league that we say are, competitors, and even then the Canucks probably aren't in that 10 yet. But let's say 2 years from now, say there's 8 to 10 teams that are real contenders, and maybe your window lasts 3 or let's say 4 years to make the math easy, right? Let's say even if a different team wins it every year, that's only 4 teams in the eight, or 4 teams winning out of those 8 contenders. And even then, you might have a repeat. It's unlikely. It's always unlikely because there's 32 teams in the league as of next year. So let's go to the next one. Do the Canucks have a forward-thinking, modern front office by today's NHL standards? I'd say no. Which area does Jim Benning struggle with most as a GM? Trades, contracts, communication. Trades, he's been fine. Contracts have been not great. Communication, I don't know. He's not a great speaker, but he's very honest. I'm gonna go contracts on this one. As senior assistant, as senior AGM, John Weisbart has been Jim Benning's longest serving associate. Do you feel you know what his day-to-day duties are? No, not a clue. As a fan, do you believe you deserve to hear from Francesco in other ways than Twitter? He's the owner. Most owners aren't very outspoken. No. Who do you believe ultimately calls the shots? I'd say management. I think ownership has a say. They have a seat at the table, and it's their money, so they have a right to have a say. I think ownership has like veto power, but I think management makes the final decisions most of the time. What is the Aqualini family's primary motivation? Power, prestige, money, or winning the Stanley Cup? I think that they're like Francesco, at least. I think he's a genuine fan. Like he genuinely wants the Canucks to win the Stanley Cup. But I mean, power and prestige. Like I don't think he's outspoken enough to really have the prestige. Money. I mean, he has a lot of investments. I'm sure money's a part of it. I'd say he wants to win, and that's why when you see like who calls the shots, ownership is an option because they genuinely try to have an impact. Um, Next page. Current team. Will Travis Green be the head coach of the Canucks a year from now? Yeah. All this talk about like, oh, he doesn't have a contract coming into this year. Panic. That doesn't concern me. Which young defenseman is likely to win a Norse trophy first? Quinn Hughes, Rasmus Dahlin, Cale Makar, Miro Heiskanen. I think Dahlin should be the most likely, but I think being in Buffalo, that kind of hurts him. Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, I'd say, are pretty even odds wise. And then Miro Heiskanen is really good. I think that with all the buzz that was around Hughes and Makar this year, I think it should be Dahlin. I think I would say Makar or Heiskanen. I'm gonna vote Heiskanen, I think. We'll go with that. How would you describe a Demko Holtby tandem? I would say solid. Spectacular. I mean, Holtby had a downturn. Demko had like Demko had like two, three really good games in the playoffs, which isn't enough to really base anything off of. So I don't think we know enough about Demko yet until he starts a lot. And then Holtby, I would say he's solid. So I'll go solid. Who'll get more starts in goal? Probably. Ooh, that's interesting. I think by default they'd probably go to Holtby more, but if he doesn't play well, it'll switch. I'll still say Holtby. After a pair of 66-point seasons to start his career, where will Patterson top out? So he had, I think, 71 games the first year with that concussion that he had. How many games they played this year? Wasn't it basically the same? So he's basically a point per game. And he's 22. So, or is he 21? I don't know. He's younger than I am. So I think 80 is a given, just given the fact that he's a point per game player. I would say probably mid to high 90s. I could see it, but like most productive, there's going to be 1 year he gets 100, right? Yeah, why not? Why not? How would you rate your concern on another NHL team giving Patterson an offer sheet next offseason? There's no one does offer sheets. There's just no chance of it. And especially with the expansion draft next year, there's going to be too much stuff going on that they're not going to care. Will Brock Besser ever reach the 30 goal mark? Probably, if he's healthy all year. Yeah, I'd say so. And he keeps playing with Patterson. Like, it'll happen. Keeping balance of the top six in mind, who would you prefer to log the most minutes with Patterson and Miller? So if you go Besser, that makes your second line suspect at best. I mean, it would just be Horvat, Pearson, and Jake, which is like, okay. But then Besser on the second line, I don't really like either. So I'd say probably just stick with what worked last year, have the Lotto line going, and hope it works out. Who's replaced Chris Tanev and where in A next season? Miller. Not a question. Patterson will get there, but Miller's just a stud. Which connected to the most encouraging individual playoff performance? Horvat was fire. Patterson, Hughes, or Demko. I mean, you look at these numbers, right? Like you see 10 goals in 3 rounds of the playoffs. That's good. 18 points. That's really good. 16 points as a defenseman. That's really good. But this is such a ridiculous number. The thing is, most encouraging, I think, is Quinn Hughes. I think Demko had a hot streak. I think he'll be a solid goalie, but like Hughes was fantastic the whole way through. Should Alex Adler get offered another contract? Well, I mean, the question is, who do you replace him with, right? Like you added Schmidt, but I mean, there's not a lot of new options. I mean, you have guys like Ulevy coming up, but again, that's a Who knows, right? Um, this is tough. It depends on the money, right? If they offer him like $2 million a year, then sure, right? And I think even at 36 and 37, the way he plays, like he's never been an elite fast skater. I think he'll be a fine 5'6" at worst, right? So should they? Probably if it's cheap. Which statement is more accurate? The defense is better with the addition of Nate Schmidt, or it's weaker without Tanev and Stetcher. So the top end's better, right? Schmidt is better than Tanev and Stetcher. And he's probably better. Yeah. And then Stetcher's replaceable. So if you were to, let's say you replace Stetcher with just a replacement level player, which he almost is, and then you replace Tanev with Nate Schmidt, that makes the defense better. The question is, are they replacing Stetcher with a replacement level player or a below replacement level player with Yul Levy or Brisebois or whoever the hell they fill in that spot with? I would still say the defense is better with Nate Schmidt, and if they can get someone in there too, or if like Yul Levy comes in and is a serviceable number 5 defenseman, then they're better. What would do more to accelerate the Canucks' growth into a cup contender? Adding a top 6 forward or a top 4 defenseman? So a top 6 forward, you're adding him to the second unit, or the second line, and you'd be bumping Virtanen out, and you'd be having Horvat, Pearson, top 6 forward, which would be really good because that also makes your bottom 6 a lot better. That moves Jake into a third line role. That bumps someone like Louis out of the lineup or Roussel out of the lineup. Whoever's not in the lineup to start with. Adding a top 4 defenseman will increase reliability a lot because we are going to have some unknown quantity on D. I think the top 6 forward. The thing is, the top 4 defenseman is more valuable. But if we're talking top 4, not top 2, so as in we're adding a 3, maybe a 4, compared to adding a number 4 forward or number 5 forward, I'm going to go with top 6 forward, but I'm really split on that one. How will Louis Eriksson's time with the Canucks end? So he's got 2 years left. He'll play out his contract in the NHL. He'll finish in the AHL or buy out, trade, or retire. This one's not going to happen. I don't think they can buy him out or trade him. Maybe next year they might be able to get something done. I doubt it. And I think he'll be a healthy scratch in the NHL is probably the most likely thing, because you'd probably rather, like, let's say you have, a prospect that maybe is on the cusp of making the team. Maybe let's say Hoglander ends up being, decent next year, right? And he's kind of on the edge of making the team or not making the team, or some other prospect. Would you rather have Louis in the press box and that prospect in the AHL, or that prospect in the press box and Louis in the AHL? You'd probably rather have Eriksson in the press box. But play out his contract, I don't think he'll play it out. I think he'd be in the press box. So I'm going to go with this one, but it's kind of in the middle there. Future, who will score an NHL goal first, Podkolzin or Hoglander? It will be Hoglander. And I think that's just going to be because Hoglander will be at camp this year. And if he makes the team, then he can score a goal. Podkolzin, I don't know what the KHL's status is, but they're playing. So I'm going to go Hoglander. Who will log the most NHL games? Yul Levy, Rathbone, Rafferty, or Chatfield? I could see it being Rafferty. I could see it being Yul Levy. I think they would rather it be Yul Levy. I'm going to go Yul Levy, but Rafferty would be my number 2 choice. When play begins in the 2020-2021 season, will the Kraken automatically become the Canucks' chief rival? Yeah. They'd be the only one close, because we're everyone's number 2, right? Like, oh, we hate the Oilers. Yeah, but the Oilers hate the Flames more. It's the same the other way around, right? We can actually be someone's chief rival. So I think that would definitely be it. Do you plan to attend a Canucks game in Seattle once borders are open? Yes, absolutely. Which potential future game or feature game involving the Canucks would interest you most? So a Heritage Classic at BC Place, a Heritage Classic against the Oilers at Commonwealth, Winter Classic versus the Kraken at Lumen Field or Global Series in Stockholm, absolutely against Seattle at CenturyLink/Lumen Field. That would be awesome. The Commonwealth would be sick too, but I don't want to go to Edmonton. I'd rather go to Seattle. Are you confident the Canucks are positioned well to avoid losing a key piece of their future in the expansion draft? I haven't looked a lot into the expansion draft, but I don't think that. I know there was an article in The Athletic that I didn't read today about this. I think anyone you lose is your 8th best forward or your 4th best defenseman. Like, it's a key piece, but it's not a core piece. So I'd say they'll probably be fine. Oh, what should the Canucks do to honor Luango's time with the organization? Having 5 retired jerseys in a 50-year existence and not having a Stanley Cup is tough. But I think he's better than Ring of Honor. But he was here for how many years? Like 8 years? Something like that? I'd say Ring of Honor. They'll probably retire his jersey though. The problem is you don't think like I don't know. He's a Panther at the end of the day. If you could wave a magic wand and remove one player in his contract, who would it be? So Louis Eriksson would be the number 1 pick if we're trying to win now, right? Because you could do something like get rid of Louis, bring in someone that's getting paid $6 million a year, or someone getting paid 4 and someone getting paid 2, and try to compete this year while Patterson and Hughes are on entry-level deals and while Brock's still on this bridge. The issue there is I don't think they would do that. I think they're too scared to go all in right now. Tyler Myers is probably the right move for the future because he's fine, but $6 million's a lot. I'm going to go with Tyler Myers. The problem is this makes your team worse this year. This one doesn't, right? Getting rid of Louis this year makes your team the same with $6 million of cap space, which makes your team better this year. Getting rid of Myers and signing someone else would make your team probably also better this year, but not as much. But those extra 2 years in the future, it could be an extra 2 years of a cup window at the end of the day. Will Michael Furlan play another game of any kind? Exhibition, regular season, or playoffs? Since exhibition's included, I'll say probably. All right. Best color scheme for the Canucks: blue, green, white, black, red, yellow. Blue, green, white. I have a skate. I have a Patterson skate jersey. I love it. But that's not their color scheme. They're blue and green. Which did you enjoy more while the Canucks are playing? Watching the game, interacting with others on social media, watching the game. I do like interacting on social media. That's literally why I started paying for cable instead of watching streams, so I wouldn't be behind, so I could use social media. But I'd much rather watch the game with a friend and, just get into it. Do you consider yourself a member of Canucks Twitter? I'm trying to break in, but sure. Where's the best place for the Canucks farm team? Probably Vancouver or Abbotsford. Somewhere in California is probably better for the team, but better for like the farm team, but better for the Canucks would be Vancouver or Abbotsford. And I say Abbotsford would be good just for the Fraser Valley in general. All right, that's all of it. Personal information, I'll just say Surrey, BC, Canada. All right, that is all 40 questions answered. I encourage you guys to also take this survey. I'm interested in what the total results will be. Maybe we'll do a video, sort of a recap on Friday once they release the results. Link will be in the description for that. Otherwise, thank you guys for hanging out. If you disagree with most of my opinions, which you probably do, throw them in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later.